All right, so let's get started with chapter one. So for introduction to statistics, I think probably the way this will go with most of the chapters, this one maybe an exception is, but we will have these, I'll try to keep these pretty short and fairly topical so that way we won't have long 40-minute videos or anything where you if you need to find one topic, hopefully the videos will be short enough to where you can just quickly get to them. Um, Other thing is, obviously, I could just have all this pre-typed out and just kind of read it for you. But I think it's better if we do some active learning, and I want you to write what I'm writing as we go. Um, Hopefully, my handwriting is not terrible, but I will be verbally saying what I'm going to be writing, so that should help as well. The other thing is you can always email me and ask questions. Obviously I'm going to be writing this out, so I'm not going to be going too fast. But if I do go too fast, you can rewatch or email me or post in the discussion board if you have questions, need clarifying comments, that kind of thing. Um, so with that, let's get started. So this one is called Stats Starts Here, and it's just kind of laying the groundwork. A lot of terminology. There's no math in this chapter. It's just mostly learning some terms and that kind of thing. So we'll start with data. Data is any collection of numbers, characters, images, or other items that provide information. Then we have statistics, and statistics help us make sense of the data. And we'll learn, I mean, that's pretty much what this course is about, is learning how to make sense of data, what you can say about it, what does it tell you, what conclusions can you come to, and that kind of thing. The 6 W's. So this goes to if you take a journalism class, the six W's help you analyze whatever it is that you're reading, that kind of thing. So the who, and we'll be using this a lot throughout this course, although beyond this chapter we don't always refer to it in this way, but it is important to kind of keep these things in your mind. And it will call it different things as we go along depending on the situation, but these are very fundamental as far as being able to pick out important details that we need. So the who describes the individuals being surveyed or that are in an experiment, as it may be. The what, this is what is being measured. And we call these variables. So in a typical math class, variables are unknown quantities. In a statistics class, variables are things that are measured, things that are asked. If you're filling out a questionnaire, for instance, then all the questions would be variables. And so variables are just, depending on which individual you're looking at in your data, the variables will have different answers, I guess, to those particular questions. The when and the where, very, very self-explanatory. When was the research done? Where was the research done? What are we trying to learn? So when you gather data or conduct an experiment or whatever it is that you're doing, ultimately there's some question that you want answered, and maybe more than one, but ultimately there's one question that you want answered, and that would be the why. And then the how was the data collected? Now, when you see problems in this chapter, they may give you, and we'll look at a couple of examples later, but they may give you different, I guess, situations. They collected this data, they did this, whatever it is. And then let's say identify the 6 W's. The who and the what are always going to be provided. The rest of them, they may or may not be provided, but the who and the what are always going to be given. So just keep that in mind. So then we have different, I guess, terminology for the who and the what. So we have respondents. So respondents are individuals who answer a survey. For instance, customers at a restaurant, you go to a restaurant, you get your bill at the end of the meal, and at the bottom of your check, it will invite you to go to a website, fill out a survey, or maybe you can do it at the table, but you're going to fill out a survey, you're responding to this. So that's an example of a respondent. Then we have subjects or participants. These are people in an experiment. For instance, patients receiving a new medication, that kind of thing. We have experimental units. These are, this is like the object of the experiment or the thing in the experiment, the object of an experiment. That is not human. And for instance, rats in a maze, those would be experimental units, or plants getting fertilizer, different fertilizer treatments, that kind of thing. Then we have records. So these would be rows in database. This might be like your Amazon purchase record, that kind of thing. Or results from annual car race or something like that. So the who, these are all referring to different types of who, I guess. Okay, so moving along. The goal is to describe the population. So usually you have some larger group that you're interested in learning about, and so that would be your population. Now, usually it's impractical to look at an entire population, and most of the time probably impossible. Usually impracticable, that's not it. Impractical. How about that? Usually impractical to look at a population. So populations are large, many people. Populations are always changing. We'll talk about that at some point later. Usually it's very difficult to look at an entire population. So you have to make some kind of compromise, and the compromise is you're going to look at a sample. So you look at a sample, and then hopefully your sample looks like the population. So the sample comes from the population. Obviously, if you're wanting to learn about a group of people, you're not going to survey a different group of people. You're going to take people from the population that you're interested in and then look at that sample and then make inferences about the population. And hopefully your sample represents the population. We'll talk about in a later chapter how we can get a good sample and then what are ways to get a bad sample, that kind of thing. So let's look at a quick example and then we'll probably stop this video and make another one. So we have, are physically fit people less likely to die of cancer? Suppose an article in a sports medicine journal reported results of a study that followed 20,088 men for 10 years. The most physically fit men had a 55% lower risk of death from cancer than the least fit group. Identify the who and what were investigated and the population of interest. So the who is your sample. So in this case, the sample is the 20,088 men. So the who is always referring to who is actually in the survey. It's referring to the sample. The what, now what were they asked? What were these men asked? These are the variables. What were they asked? So each man, if you were in the survey, what were you asked, or what was looked at on you, in you? What are they learning about you? That kind of thing. So we see that the most physically fit men had a lower risk of death than the least fit group. So physical fitness is something that was measured or asked or looked at because they could obviously distinguish between physically fit men versus less fit men. And then the other one would be cause of death. So those are the two variables that we have. And then the population of interest. Now, the population, you will look at your sample and what would be a larger group that might have come from. And in this case, we're just going to say all men. You could say, I mean, it doesn't limit it to the United States. So you might say US men, but we will say all men. Now, these when you do a homework for something like that, these will be multiple choice. So I doubt it would say all men and US men. I don't think those would be two different choices. So you're going to pick the best answer. Now, it's not going to be all people because the sample only had men, so it wouldn't make sense for your population to be all people because you're not getting women in there as well. So that's a quick example. We'll do a couple more in the next video. In the next video, we'll look at different types of variables. So we'll stop this one here and pick it up in a minute.